All right, everyone. I just wanted to do maybe a brief 10 or 15 minute Walking Dead predictions episode because Monday I start my new job as a pure romance consultant. So it's going to take up a lot of my time. I'm just kidding, April Fool. I'm not as good at that as other people, but in any case, I'll be pretty busy next week, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch the show first run on Sunday. So I wanted to do 10 minutes or so of just predictions for the finale, which promises to be incredibly, incredibly exciting and could change the course of the show for a couple of years or who knows, well, at least a couple of episodes. So based on everything we saw last week, based on, let's say, my cursory knowledge of the comic books and of the whole legend behind the show, I'm kind of going to work up 7 predictions that I have for next week's episode, and you can sort of dissect them on your own and see if you have any differing opinions, and feel free, of course, to write me on my Facebook or on my YouTube channel, which this will be posted very soon. So I'm going to go with my first prediction, based on that ending to last week's show, is that Daryl is basically intact. I know we heard the gunshot at the end of the show, and I know we heard Dwight say something to the effect of, you'll be all right. And I think the writers were very wise to put that in. Otherwise, the speculation over Daryl would have been rampant, rather than it would have overshadowed the awaiting of Negan. So that was a very wise line for the writers to insert. So my first prediction is that Daryl is basically intact. I think you're going to find maybe Dwight shot the crossbow out of his hand, or maybe just grazed him just to scare him or something like that. So let's get that one right out of the way. Daryl lives for now. Now, my second prediction, again, this is a little bit based on the comic book sort of heritage or history. Morgan was seen, I believe it was in the promo, in the preview, riding a horse. Or he may have actually been seen in the episode, I forget. But I believe at this point that Morgan is going to ride off on his own in search of Carol. Possibly in the wrong place, but nonetheless in search of Carol. And I believe he's going to find a new community. Not Alexandria, not the Hilltop. New community, and that community will be analogous to what is known in the comic books as the Kingdom. The Kingdom is a very interesting comic book locale. It is inhabited apparently by a character, a fellow African-American character named, fellow to Morgan, not me, named Ezekiel, who's very unique, and he's got a little pet with him. I won't get into detail with that, but let's just say it will be a challenge for the writers to work this pet into the show. So I believe that's what's going to happen. He's going to be kind of broken off from the main group, and he's going to be out there, find an even bigger universe, and thus the Kingdom. So now you will have sort of 3 closed-in communities, if you will, all united in their hatred of Negan, and the Saviors, Negan, which are all over the place. I believe this is quite necessary to develop the show, because like 2 little communities, 2-on-1, well, 2 small communities on versus Saviors is not enough. You need something else to challenge the Saviors for next year, and it is vital that the Kingdom enter play. My third prediction is that one character is likely headed not necessarily for death, but for a lengthy absence from the show. Offhand, based on what we saw last week, based on the note she left and her mindset, it would appear to be Carol. I am kind of in favor of that. I think that's the more likely scenario, but I'm not ruling out that Daryl could be that character as well. I think he has also been sort of mentally or sort of temperamentally drifting further from the group. So I would not be surprised if he were able to get away from the Saviors, let's say, in the Malay, and I know many of you are praying for that. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up sort of fleeing or perhaps going somewhere on his own and, not. It's hard to imagine him just abandoning the group, but if he finds himself in a situation where everything looks hopeless, he might try to strike out on his own and maybe perhaps summon the group later to his new little place. I'm still drifting towards Carol on this one, but more on this a little bit later. Okay, then my fourth prediction is that we know what's kind of expected at the end of the show, but my fourth prediction is that sometime in the middle or 3/4 of the way through the show, a major or a mid-level cast member is going to be killed on camera before the finale. Okay. Not necessarily like one of the core group, but somebody who's somewhat important. Perhaps somebody from the core group too, but maybe I don't want to throw names out there, but I'm thinking sort of like Eugene, Rosita, Aaron, that kind of level. I could see somebody perhaps in a scuffle with the Saviors, or even in a pre-finale scuffle with Negan, getting taken out, whether it by gunfire or other means. I'm pretty sure of it, actually, because there's got to be some kind of major conflict leading up to the Negan showdown, which we'll talk about momentarily. So that's number 4. You're going to see some form of on-camera notable cast member death. So we'll leave it at that. Prediction number 5. Gregory, the leader of the Hilltop group or camp, the Hilltop, is going to be found to be complicit in giving up the location of Alexandria and information about the group there, perhaps in conjunction with Jesus, but not confirming that yet. But the little we saw of Gregory, he looked to be something of a conniver. I don't want to say outright scumbag, but yeah, maybe so. But certainly a conniver, although Maggie out-connived him when he was sort of in his time of need. It's nice, but I think he's looking to get back. So I believe that if the Saviors have already found Alexandria or are about to attack Alexandria, it's going to be in part because of information that was garnered from the Hilltop colony. And this is also in part because the Hilltop, Gregory in particular, not necessarily the Hilltop residents, but Gregory might be feel that he was a little bit blindsided by Rick's group, and he's looking kind of to save himself. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those people there are looking to save themselves. Yeah. I'm sure maybe a savior approached them even and said, look, you give up the information or we wipe you out. So there you have it. I'm very sure that the Hilltop plays some sort of role in any kind of attack by the Saviors. Okay, so we got through 5. Number 6. I'm going to predict this kind of dark, but I think that Maggie, unfortunately, is going to lose her baby. Okay, it looked kind of obvious at the end of that episode. She was in pain. Maybe could go either way, but I'm just thinking based on what's coming ahead. There's going to be a time post Negan showdown where basically Alexandria is going to be subservient to the Saviors. It's going to be a very tough time for them. Be virtual slaves. They'll be abused by the Saviors for quite a while, and this might not be the best time to bring a child into the world. Not that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it's a sort of maybe a writer's prophecy. I don't know what to call it. I think Maggie is you're not going to see the sad results of that miscarriage, perhaps until next year, next season. Not that you're going to see anything bad happen on camera necessarily. She might flee back to the hilltop, to the doctor there, who may try to treat her. That's kind of maybe our excuse for seeing the hilltop colony in next week's episode. Don't forget, we haven't seen them in about 5 or 6 shows now. When they were brought there by Jesus, and they were introduced to that group and Gregory, and they learned of Negan and the Saviors in more detail. So I think it's about time to sort of refresh that place, and this could be a good excuse to do it. So again, it's a sad thing. It might have been nice for Judith to have a playmate. But I think this, unfortunately, is going to end sadly. Whether it ends sadly for the baby's father remains to be seen. But this brings me sort of into my prediction number 7. I'm not alone in this prediction. I've tried very greatly to avoid spoilers for the most part. And I think I've kind of done that. I've looked at some other website, commentary and all, but I have been very careful to sort of avoid spoilers for the most part. So, prediction number 7 is that I believe that the victim of Negan and his barbed wire ridden friend Lucille is not going to be revealed. I think apparently there was some footage leaked of the Negan attack. Somebody was able to take some footage. Now, I don't think that footage was some of you may know about it. I don't think that footage was necessarily authentic, but at the same time, I'm going to kind of go with the angle here that you're going to see the attack, and you're going to see some people in the group who will probably all be in one room, sort of react very horrified. The cameras will perhaps give you the gratitude of panning around to a couple of the survivors who were not the victim. In other words, you may see 2 or 3 people who are, maybe Aaron or somebody like that, who are not Lucille's victim, who are kind of shrieking in horror. But I don't think you're going to see right now the victim of Negan's beating. I don't think it serves the plot very well. If you kind of just think about it, if the viewer knows who it is now, you have a whole off season now to brood about who dies. If it's Glenn, let's say you see Glenn. First of all, it's going to be very weird to see, like, let's say, the dead carcass, the destroyed, gut-ridden head of the person who is the victim. Yes, this is a time to show and to demonstrate brutality, but that almost like takes it the wrong direction. I think they want to show how brutal Negan is, but it's almost like if you know who it is right away, then it sort of takes something away. You now spend the whole off season thinking about that character rather than thinking about the brutality that lays ahead for the entire group. You also, if you're looking at strategically, I mean, there's nobody's really taken a poll, I'm sure. Like, as somebody said, are you going to stop watching Walking Dead if X dies or if Y dies? But I'm sure for every character, for every main character, that there's going to be a contingent of people who are like who are going to get maybe a little bit turned off. Not necessarily that they're going to give up on the show, but that they're going to sort of be distraught with it, that it might sort of be a detriment to their viewing habits, and maybe in the future could cause them to turn off the show. I mean, for me personally, I think like it's a dark, bringing Negan in now, it's going to turn the show very dark. It's dark now, obviously, but it's kind of like a quirky dark. Now it's going to really be like almost like watching a documentary about like a slave nation or something like that. You're gonna not just see the horrors of survival, you're gonna see the horrors of dealing with oppressors. It went from being a society that was surviving to now a society that is being oppressed by a group of people. So it's going to turn the show dark, but I'm going to keep watching, and it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't be pissed off at not knowing who the victim is. I'm almost expecting it, but I certainly it's going to be a long off season either way. And I think basically just for the future of the show, I think Negan, you can buy 2 more seasons out of Negan alone. You could buy 1 more season after that, sort of in the post-Negan era, maybe one last villain, and I have some ideas how they could create that villain, like possibly from someone within the group. But more on that on a future show. So enjoy the finale. I hope that I will be able to watch it like in real time. If not, I'll try to watch it on the rerun, but I will be avoiding Facebook that night probably until I am able to watch the show. So your comments, your questions, whatever, send them over to me. And this is on YouTube for your viewing. I might turn this into a blog talk, but in the meantime, enjoy the show and enjoy the weekend.